Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Networking with Nathaniel. This is episode, oh my, 27, I believe it is at this point. Yeah, I'm pleased to have Victoria here with me. Thank you for joining me today, Victoria. She is a wife of 18 years at this point. 10. She's got three kids, 10, 7, and 5, I believe she just mentioned. She is a Gator. She's been in the Gator tribe for almost a year now and a TC. She's been doing the TC things for 3 to 4 months at this point. She's really focusing on the short-term Gator lending, though, so that's probably where we'll spend the bulk of our conversation here. She's in Salt Lake City. She's a pharmacist by kind of W-2 trade. And that's also a very interesting topic. But like I said, this is a real estate networking podcast. We're here to talk real estate as much as we can. We'll see where we go, though. It's a pleasure, Victoria. Thanks for being here.
Well, thank you so much, Nathaniel, for having me on. And you know what? 27 is actually my favorite number. And
Okay.
so I'm honored actually to be your 27th episode.
And and this recording is on 2/7.
Yes, exactly. So,
What
so
the
many
heck?
number alignments. It's
Yeah, this
beautiful,
is
I have to say.
amazing. Well, it's a pleasure having you here, Victoria. I think we met through like network to net worth, I think.
Yes.
And we've had a couple conversations or yeah, online and one offline at this or on Zoom like this before. So um it's we kind of jived right off the bat. I said, this is a person that we can have on networking with Daniel and see where the conversation kind of leads. Um, just briefly, can you kind of describe what your day-to-day W-2 looks like? And then we'll jump into the Gator and
Of course.
TC stuff.
So,
Yeah.
as a cannabis pharmacist, I do work full time. And so I'm doing three 12-hour shifts in a week. And so
Okay.
that does leave me kind of pockets in between my days where I do connections and following up on different deals that I have in motion. But I do have that flexibility with this current W-2. With past W-2s, I've had to be very much focused on the pharmacy aspect of it. And I didn't even have the time, to go on a bathroom break or,
Oh,
think about eating. So much less adding in a real estate component. So I really am enjoying this kind of duality that I have a ability at the moment. But it is something that I can talk with patients 1 minute and then I can be talking to title or talking to an escrow agent or buyer or seller the next minute. And so it really helps to keep my days fresh and different day to day.
okay. Yeah. When I hear pharmacist, I think of somebody in the back like putting chemicals in a pill or something like that. But then you mentioned cannabis, and that where my mind goes to a lot of different places. And then you say you're spending time talking with patients. So is that primarily what you're doing, is talking to patients and trying to diagnose what their, issues are and then how you can best kind of treat that through cannabis? Or are you in the back mixing stuff and making brownies and stuff as well? Like what's that look like?
That is so much fun too. I
Yeah.
do love to do that on my own time, but I don't do that in the employment space.
Okay.
But so my job is mostly, I don't do any diagnosing, but I do talk to people about where they are at with cannabis, what their previous experiences have been, and then take that information and kind of tailor it to what we have available in this day and age. So we have so much wealth of information, but
Yeah.
so little education. And so I do spend a part of a conversation just educating about what cannabis is, what it's not, how it works in the body. But then we also discuss their specific situation and what maybe different products would be better, what strains would be best for them, even the
Okay.
timing of different products. And
Mm,
so I really get to have a conversation and really connect with somebody, developing that relationship. And then I do have people who come back time after time. So it's not a one off kind of a conversation. We're developing that relationship and we're working together to maybe get off of those prescription medications, or maybe
okay.
it's just to get in a better place. And
Yeah.
so that's really where I enjoy being in pharmacy. I've been in the back room mixing chemicals in the back. I've also been stuffing pills into bottles, and so I've been in many different areas. But it's having that conversation, building that relationship that really is my forte. That's what I love doing. And that's also why I love connecting with other people in the real estate space as well. So it very much kind of lends one to another.
Yeah, that's interesting. So you're taking some of the skills that you've learned through talking to people and trying to figure out what's working, what's not working, and translating that into the real estate side as well. which
Exactly.
I mistakenly used the word diagnose. That's the doctor's job, right? You're kind of saying, hey, well, how did this, just for purposes, brownie, how did this brownie do for you? Okay, well, then maybe we should try this brownie instead, or, right, you need less
Yes,
brownie or you
exactly.
need a little bit more brownie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting. So you're doing 3 days, 3 12-hour shifts, which is no joke. 12-hour
No.
shifts, and yeah, but that does lend a lot of time for you to be not only doing real estate on the side, but be a wife and a mother. So I think
Right.
that's a pretty cool thing. I've always loved my wife used to do 410s at her
Okay.
previous job, and I loved that. I think she liked it more than she didn't like it. Obviously, like a 10 hours is a long day too, but then you have 3 days every week. Like,
Right.
yeah, you could, yeah. Um, so what is I think it's been, yeah, you said about a year. Oh, no, wait,
Mhm.
before we skip on to this, because you're in Salt Lake City. So you're a
Yeah.
cannabis pharmacist in Salt Lake City. Um, how is that?
Well, it's very much a divided nation in Utah. So
Hmm,
there's some people who are very much taboo. No, cannabis is the devil. And then
yeah.
there's some people who are like, we've been sneaking cannabis since before the age of time. And so we're really accepted to it. So it's really two different camps. Utah, the laws in Utah can be very rigid. Everything has to be homegrown here. Everything has to be produced in Utah. So the state has their hand on everything.
Okay.
Uh,
That's a
but with
blessing and a
that, they
curse.
do have some wiggle room,
Yeah.
as long as there's a pharmacist involved, kind of guiding the care. And so that's kind of been their caveat with that. We actually don't charge tax on anything, and so
Okay.
it is kind of an interesting premise that there is no tax.
Hmm.
Though we're surrounded by states that are all recreational, so
Yeah.
Arizona, Nevada, Colorado, they're full recreational, but we are only medicinal. Um, and so with that, the recreational states have limits of how strong their products can be. Where in Utah, because only certain people can buy these products in the first place,
Huh.
we really have the sky's the limit. So I can have really, really strong products in my dispensary, but I can't sell them to everyone. It's really has to be case by case basis.
Yeah. There's a lot about that I definitely like. And I don't want to say I'm for or against one or the other, but it's definitely having it homegrown. I think,
Mhm.
keeping it all in state, I think that's a great thing. I'm not the biggest fan of the government being involved, but um,
Well,
yeah,
that's
but
hard to get away from when it's
right. Yeah.
currently it's a Schedule One drug, and
Yeah.
so you can't get
I
away
think
from
it's a really good thing. It's a really cool thing that you're doing because, like you said, and I am of that camp that it's something that's been used for a long time. And it has been taken advantage of. It does get used maliciously, I guess, or whatever you want to say, by
it.
some people. But let's digress from this issue, and let's talk about you. I know you're TCing. I just want to touch on that really quickly because you did mention that you're really focusing on the Gator stuff. But how did you get into TCing from Gator, and what's that kind of look like?
Of course. So the reason I got into TC or transaction coordinating was because I felt like I was missing a lot of understanding within the Gator program.
Okay.
I watched a ton of videos by Pace Morby and took a lot of his trainings and his classes, but I wasn't able quite to put A to B and figure out what all went in between A to B. So I talked to a bunch of people, but they were kind of at the same level as I was. I talked to a couple of people a few steps ahead of me, but they're like, this is how it is. And they couldn't really fill in the gap in the way that I needed. And so just trying to fill in those pieces. Why were we doing this? What was the benefit? Because I didn't have any background in the who's it's or what's it's with the processes. And so I said, hey, okay, TCs, that's what they do. They know the who's it's and what's it's. They know the processes. So let's learn that. And then I can apply that to Gator. And then I can really bring that knowledge and bolster myself so then I can protect myself and know what I'm doing. And
Okay.
so that's really why I got into TC. I did link up with somebody who already had a team put together. They are a top tier TC through Pace Morby. And so they are trained and they've been educating me and kind of holding my hand on the first couple of files that I did. But then I was on my own. I'm still on their team, so I can ask questions all the time. and they're super patient with me, and I really appreciate that. But they've been kind of my go-to, my mentor as far as TCing, and that's been a really amazing journey, and I am so appreciative of having that opportunity.
Yeah, that's awesome. It sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but just to kind of sum this up, it sounds like you jumped into TC because you had some nitty-gritty kind of questions with paperwork and stuff that you were doing for the Gator side, and maybe you didn't have the confidence in yourself understanding what all the process was that needed to go along to make sure that at least you were going to be protected when you did do your Gator lending.
Yep, so
Yeah.
that's pretty much it. I'd heard a lot of horror stories about people losing their money or getting locked up for infinity. And so I wanted to minimize that risk. I know you can't eliminate 100%,
Yeah.
but at least minimizing it by being knowledgeable about the different processes was
Okay.
important to me.
And when you're doing your like, yeah, how many transactions have you done in this 4 months, or like how many are you doing a week? What's that kind of look like?
So right now it's about one a month.
Okay.
And so I've done about 5 different transactions. Some of them have been a straight sub two transaction. I've done a couple of wraps, and I've also done a PML transaction.
Okay.
So it's not always a straightforward one. Some of them are assigned. Some of them have complicated buyers. Some of the sellers are really hands-on and want to know every single thing and want to peruse, like really read the documents and say, I don't like this word of, let's change
Yeah.
that.
Yep.
Like, okay, we can do that. So I've really worked with a very dynamic spread of people, even in this short time, to see how different each case is. Each file is very, very different.
Mhm. Yeah, that's awesome. So, we can probably, yeah, I mean, let's leave the TC stuff behind now and jump into the Gator, because I know that that's what you got into. That's what, where you started a year ago. Um, what were the first few months like for you after joining Gator? Um, yeah, let's start there.
Okay. So first 3 months, well, let's start at the beginning, of course. So
Yeah.
the first few months were really just that fire hose. I was watching videos, I was learning, I was talking to people and just going, oh, okay, what on earth did I get myself into? And then a part of it also was I was feeling a little bit resentment. The What I had initially found that led me into Gator was you can make money in 30 days. And I'm like, where's my money? Like,
Yeah.
why am I not
90
making it?
days. Yeah.
So I kind of felt a little bit bait and switch a little bit and
Mm,
that resentment. And I got to switch that, reframe that and really understand the process and understand why this was created in the first place, but then also how it benefits and how it serves so many other people. And so I really got to reframe that from a me to how can I serve the community? How can I lift other people up?
mm,
And that's funny because in my W-2, that's I lift people up too. I'm like working to serve them. And so it was kind of a juxtaposition as far as me being very me focused and why this wasn't working for me, um, versus like normally what I do is a lot of service. And
yeah.
so shifting that wasn't hard to do. It was just like I needed a light bulb moment to do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, that's interesting. And it's funny how you tie it into what you're doing on
Mhm.
your, I don't know why I was going to quote that W2. It's not, it doesn't need to be quoted, but you're constantly giving to people all day, well, 3 days a week for a really long period of time during those 3 days. Um, and then you're going, well, how it's me time now.
Yeah.
I joined the Gator so I could get some me stuff, but realizing, and I don't know because I haven't been in, I haven't gone through the Gator side of things, but there's some mental little switches that we turn and
Yeah.
twist and flip, and that was a big thing for me is that it's not about me all the time. You got to look for me too, but um, does the Gator have like a mindset
No,
module? Yeah.
I believe it's Elena. Elena does
Okay.
one for sub two,
Yeah.
but no, we don't have one for Gator at all. Like there is, if you follow Carly, Carly has some things with her and Jennifer, but
Okay.
they're separate. It's kind of a spin-off,
Yeah.
as far as Gator, and so you could follow them and do some of the mindset with them. But I did not find that at first. That was something I found later down the road. It's like, oh,
Okay.
Carly also does a podcast, and got into that. And I really do love listening to Carly Grunman and Jennifer Champion So they've been a big support for me, but it took a while. Like the navigation system kind of wasn't laid out very well, which is one
Okay.
reason why Pace Morby is revamping it. But it has been a shift because some of that we just kind of figured out on our own. When Sub2 was first created, like there was a lot of, well, I don't know how to do this, and like
Yeah.
all of this wacky road trip. Versus now, it's more streamlined. I should say it's not completely streamlined, but
Yeah, when
it's
you have
more.
12,000 people in it, it's
Yeah,
can get chaotic. Yeah.
for sure, for sure. And then everybody's at kind of different places. Or am I doing multifamily? Am I doing single family? Am I wholesaling or
Yeah,
whatever?
because there's so many ways to. I
There
hate
are.
this. I hate the phrase with to skin the cat. It's gotta be something else to say there, but yeah. Um, so have you done any actual gator lending at this point? 3 months,
So
6 months?
I do have some money out right now deployed in a traditional Gator sense. Well, I guess I should say short-term PML. So Gator technically is short-term loans, 30 days or less.
Yeah.
What I jumped into was a 45-day, um, more like a pool of funds for a rehab. So
Okay.
they did all the work to pool the Gators together to fund this project,
Okay.
and then getting paid back at the 45-day mark. And so my funds are still deployed in that, and I'm the payout should be any day now. Uh,
Okay. Is
that
this the first
is
one
that.
you've done? Actually
This is the
lending
first
side?
one I've done as a Gator. So I've done
Okay.
other ones as connectors and
Okay.
bringing money to a Sub2 student and putting those two together and then taking my chunk. But this is the first time I've done as a Gator.
Yeah, that's something that I haven't asked before. And I had Shane, who is I don't know if he's the only one that put together Network to Net Worth, but he's kind of like the founding member.
Mm-hmm.
I had him on, and I never thought to ask, like, how does a connector get paid in a transaction where you bring the two parties?
So really, there's you want to have the paperwork, obviously, but it just comes into putting that into escrow that there's a consultant fee. And so when escrow is being divided, dispersed at the end there, then you send the money to the connector as well.
Okay. And that is this something that so you've got the guy who needs to borrow the money, and you're saying, hey, I have a hundred, I'm just gonna say a number, like $150 connector fee. I hope it's more than that, but
It's more than that, but
and
yes.
then you go to the guy that has the money. Hey, I have this 150. So are they each paying you the connector fee? Like, what is that?
So in my
Case
experience,
by
I
case,
usually
maybe.
just taking it from the borrower. I'm just
Okay.
charging the borrower. I
Yeah.
have talked to other gators who are charging it on both sides,
Okay.
um, but I don't think that is as common.
Okay. Yeah, it kind of makes more sense to be the borrowed side. So it's just
Yes.
one fee. Yeah. Interesting. Because I like it's something that I don't want to divert from the one thing right now. But I meet so
But
many
there's so
people.
many things.
Yeah, I just talk to so many people, like, and I'm always like, hey, you should talk to this person,
Mm-hmm,
kind of
mm-hmm.
thing. Like, I'm doing connecting already. How do I get, monetize it?
But yeah, so
Me.
there you go. It's karma. It will come back to you. It will.
Yeah, that's what I think too. I like, I just got off the phone with somebody before our call and said, "Hey, you should
Okay.
talk to this person. He's also in the city that you're in. I just talked to him a couple days ago. Like, see what happens. The connections are to be made, and like you said, yeah, karma is a great thing. So when you've it doesn't seem like this pool of funds is kind of what you're focused on. Um, but for the short-term kind of PML that you're looking to do, what kind of returns are you looking for? How quickly do you want to get your money back so you can redeploy it? Like, I guess also like, what do you have to lend out?
So with that, I do part of it is building up connections. So I do Pace Morby calls it gator wrestling.
Yeah, okay.
So sometimes if I come across somebody who's looking for 300K, and maybe I don't have 300K at the moment, and then I bring, what I do have, and then one or two other gators along, and then together we sum up 300K. I
Okay.
can do that and then take a connector fee of that, but then also, since my own funds are going into the deal, I can take my gator portion. So that's one way I can structure it, or it can just be my own funds. Right now, I do have about 50K, though, like I said, it's out at the moment, so I don't have it liquid, but I'm expecting that to be back soon.
Okay.
But I'm usually looking, my max term right now is about 90 days. I usually in my head am automatically adding another 30 just
Okay.
because uh, things don't typically work out quite as well as we hope all the time. So
Right.
I do say 90, but in my head, I mean 120. That does not mean when I'm working with people, they say 120 and then we're adding on another 30.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's usually it. And then as far as returns, that really depends on the position. It depends on the file, kind of
Okay.
the risk level as well. So it's very deal to deal specific.
Okay. Um, and yeah, what would be more risky and what would be like less risky?
So less risky would be like a double close that the underwriting looks really awesome. Though the underwriting isn't quite as important on a double close, but making sure that that is secure, making sure that the borrowers on both sides, I vetted them, that they have a good background check, that there's no felonies, title
Okay.
is legit. That would be a fairly low risk operation. Usually double closes by money's in and out about 24 hours, maybe 48 on the long side, but it's usually just in and out. Now, a more risky one would be fifth position
Okay. Oh,
on
yeah.
the loan.
Yeah.
So second or further down the road does tend to add on the risk. Uh, the more people who are in on the deal, it does tend to get a little bit dicier whether or not you're actually going to get that return in the event it falls through.
Yeah.
If all the stars line up and everything goes according to plan, and there is enough money on the sale of the property for everybody to get paid out, then it's beautiful and it works great and we love it. But as a gator, as a lender, making sure that I plan for the worst case scenario, which I'm not usually a pessimist. I'm usually very optimistic. And so I want to trust everybody. I want to say, yes, let's go for this. That deal sounds amazing. Your underwriting looks good. I'm not going to double check it. But then from just the TCing, just from talking to other gators and their experiences, you got to do your due diligence. You got to do your own underwriting. You got to do your own double check of the title, double check of the borrower, double check of all the parties involved. So if there's a first position, if there's another position ahead of you, knowing who those are, knowing their contact information, knowing what their terms are. So that way, if the deal ends up being 6 months late, is there still enough money in the equity to get paid out?
Okay.
Uh, so the further position you are down the line, the riskier it is.
Yeah, that absolutely makes sense, and I didn't even think of that when I asked that question. When you say it the way you said it, I'm like, oh, that was kind of a silly question, but it definitely sounds like this isn't a passive thing. It's not like you're
No,
going, yeah, you're not going, hey, I got 50 grand, somebody's going to do something with
yeah.
it and it's going to make returns on it and I'm never going to have to think about it at all. It also sounds like, at least for a lot of deals, you got to be willing to that it almost like you don't need this money. Like you've got to
Mm-hmm.
have a little
You got
bit
to
in
be
the back of
prepared
your
for
head,
that.
yeah, that it's not coming back and it's going to be
Yeah.
gone forever.
Mm-hmm.
Um, which I might have some trouble with, but um, yeah, with the double close things, it sounds like you're lending on the closing costs. Is that
Right. Mm-hmm.
okay?
So it's
Yeah.
usually on the closing costs with that. Sometimes it could be the EMD of the second part of the
Okay.
loan or the second part of the process. So the B2C part. Um,
Yeah.
so it kind of depends on who needs the funds. If but yeah, usually it is just the closing costs kind of a
Okay.
thing.
And how I know we're getting close to the to 30 minutes here, so I want to make sure that we wrap it up. I'm respectful of your time, but how are you right now finding these people that need money? How are you finding the people that have money? Yeah, what's that kind of look like besides network to net worth? Maybe
So
not
network to
besides, yeah.
net worth has been a huge advantage to me, and learning from Jesse Stan and Shane Evans has been huge because I was kind of missing that marketing piece, that branding piece.
Okay.
Uh, but
Yeah.
I have been connecting with a whole bunch of people within Gator, and then those people in Gator who are also in Sub Two, having them kind of link me to other people in Sub Two,
Okay.
and so expanding my reach.
Yeah.
I also go to local networking groups, meetings, meetups. That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah, there.
Um, the local meetups as well. And with that, the one that I kind of co-host, we bring in elephants, we bring in Sub Two, we bring in contractors, we bring in kind of everybody. and also connecting within those groups to see who has money, who needs money, where they kind of are in their journey, and working with them to help, like, what do you need, and helping to lift them up.
Yeah, I love this. It's been a while since I've been to an in-person
Okay.
RIA. Um, but maybe it's time to go back. I have learned a lot more, and I think I have a lot more value to bring and to extract kind of from other people. Like you said, what do you need? Because I have
Right.
connections to make it. Yeah, maybe it's time to start going back. The reason I stopped originally, I think, was COVID, and then we
Okay.
had our kid, and we had our first kid, and the meetings don't start till 7, and my
Mm-hmm.
my kid goes to bed at 7:30, and we usually are in bed by 8:30, 9 o'clock. By the time the RIA's over, it's 9. I'm driving 30 minutes home. I'm exhausted. Like, but yeah, there's sacrifices that need to be made, and maybe this is one to
Yeah.
go meet some people in person. I digress though. It's not about me. No,
But
it
no,
is
but
me,
just like
me, me,
thought
me, me.
though, it is like you have to have a moment. Me, and then I get 15 minutes of me, and then
Yeah,
I shift.
yeah,
And
that's
so
it.
just putting a timer on it can be really helpful.
There it is. Yeah.
But thinking of meetups, Eventbrite. So that was something I recently found just searching up like REI
Oh,
on meetups or
okay.
on Eventbrite.
Yeah.
Like popped up a whole bunch of different free ones, different times. Some of them were virtual, some of them were in person. But so that would be some advice I'd have for anybody watching as well. Like you don't have to just stick with RIA. RIAs are great, but then also looking to see what local sub two or gator ones there are, or even Eventbrite, searching that real estate investor and seeing what
Yeah.
you find.
Well, you just I think we were talking. I forget what I was on a Zoom with Jesse recently within the past
Okay.
couple days, and we were brainstorming ways to
Okay.
meet PMLs.
Yeah.
And I thought going instead of going to a real estate meetup, go to like a dentistry meetup.
There you
Yeah,
go.
somewhere where there's these, higher income earners that are focused on their business, and they don't have,
Right.
they don't have time to focus on going and letting their money work for them. I thought that might be interesting. So Eventbrite, it's Bright's not spelled right. It's Brite. Is
Yeah.
that okay?
BRITE.
That's what I
Mhm.
thought. Um,
And also BNI meetings. So Businessing Network. Oh, I forget what the I stands for. But BNI, those are also a paid membership. So they do tend to have small
oh,
business
okay.
entrepreneurs that are like actually doing well
Yeah.
versus startups.
Okay.
And so they're also very particular about, I have only one person per industry. So that can be helpful, but you can go to a couple free before actually paying into their membership.
Okay.
And that's been kind of a different way for me also to interact with different, on the business side, like looking for small business owners and connecting with them and what their journey or their story has been.
Love it. Well, before we wrap, I have a couple questions for you, and
Okay.
and I'm sure you have an interesting answer to the one. What is your biggest life lesson, and how did you learn it?
So my biggest life lesson was actually when I chose to quit my W-2 the first time
Okay.
and go into being an entrepreneur full time. And so I had only been in the entrepreneur space. I had never, and so this was 2020. Um, I had never even contemplated, owning my own business. I always thought about, you go to college, you get a W-2, you work up the corporate ladder, and then someday you're a CEO and you retire
Yeah.
or something like that. And so that was my plan. That was what I thought you did. And to start listening to podcasts and just kind of branching out during COVID. So what I was doing during COVID was actually COVID testing. So I was
Okay.
sticking the stick up people's noses and then running it in the lab and, telling people, yes, you're positive, go
Wow.
leave. And no, you're not positive, stay here. So I got to do that for an airline. And I
Okay.
did all of their staff for the airline. And so they literally had to come in every single day to get
Wow.
tested,
Yeah.
during a huge chunk of that. But I had a lot of downtime too, as we were starting to kind of peter off, and as far as restrictions were starting to open up. And so I was really kind of exploring, what are my other options, because I'm done with this retail pharmacy, like mixing the pills in the back. I'm done just shoving them in the bottle with corporate saying, do faster, go faster, go faster. And
I can
I'm
imagine.
like,
Yeah.
so I was done with that. So I quit my W-2 December 31st, 2020. And opened my business. I'd opened it a couple months before, but I was fully dedicated to it January 1st, 2021. And it didn't go where I wanted it to go. But learning from that, learning how to be an entrepreneur, learning who do I talk to? How do I talk to people? How do I market? That whole process, that I can do this and that I am worthy of doing this, that I don't just have to be this cog in the wheel, that I am worth so much more than just punching in and punching out and being a flesh and blood body. Like that was was my hugest lesson, that there is so much more and there can be so much more, and I can be the mom that I want to be and not just say, sorry kids, mama has to work another 12-hour shift. I don't get to go to your piano recital. I don't get to go to your soccer tournament. I don't get to take you to swim lessons or help you with your homework. I don't get to do that. And so that now I can. And
Yeah.
so being employed by my own self, I have that opportunity. Um, so I did have to go back to the workforce just because I wasn't doing quite as well. But that is, I got a taste of being a mom, like a real involved mom, and I am getting back to that. And my job, at least now, even though it's 10 hours a day, or 12, well, 10 and 12 sometimes, I'm still able to coordinate it and work it around my kids' schedule, that I
Okay.
can be present in their lives.
Yeah. Well, and it
That's the
sounds
part.
like the job that you're doing now is just maybe a little bit more fulfilling than the one you were doing previously too, just a smidge. Um, You mentioned podcasts, which
Yeah.
is going to lead me into the last little bit here. Podcasts, books, documentaries you've watched, any recommendations that you have, real estate, entrepreneur, or just something that you found interesting?
So there's lots of things that are interesting. Holy moly. Um, so with, I don't know, there's only so much time in a day.
Right.
And so finding where your focus is, so that way you're not spinning your wheels or filling your mind with junk, that gets to be challenging sometimes. So even with short drives, a 10-minute drive to the grocery store, I've been trying to fill that with a podcast. And so there's a 10-minute podcast, a
Oh,
10-minute entrepreneur podcast that I really like. Um, the quality is not always the best, but he does always have like a really good nugget or insight. And I can just fit that into 10 minutes versus some of Pace Morby's Zooms. They go on for 3 hours.
yeah.
And it's like, I love you. You got so much good stuff, but I need that nugget. I
Yeah.
just need the nugget and move on.
Yep.
Um, and so sometimes that can be challenging. So at least within the last couple of months, I have actually just been focusing on Gator and doing a lot of those Pace Morby stuff. But I do, like I said, I do follow Carly Grunman and Jennifer
Okay.
Champion
Yeah, you did
on
mention.
theirs. I do also do a couple of health ones to stay in the pharmacy field. Um, and then I do Ed Milet, of course, and Grant Cardone. Um,
Their
but those,
podcasts?
yeah, they're podcasts.
Yeah, okay. I knew
So,
Grant. I didn't know Ed Milet had one. I
yeah,
mean, of course
he
they
has a
all have
podcast. He
podcasts.
has like a
We all
mindset.
have
It's like more
podcasts.
mindset focused. And so like, especially when I'm feeling, this is too tough. Why am I bothering? Why am I wasting my time? I definitely lean into Ed Milet a lot more,
Okay.
just to help bolster me up and give me that energy. Yes, this is, you want to do this. You can do this. This is
Yeah.
not just, this is hard at the moment, but it's not going to be hard forever.
Yeah.
So
That's fun. I mean, not funny, but I kind of, I guess. It's funny that we're mentioning that. Like we have moments where we're cruising along and everything's going well,
yeah.
and then the objective is to get it difficult again. And
Mm-hmm.
so, I'm in the cruising along place right now, and we're trying to figure out where to make things really difficult. But that's part of the entrepreneurial journey is
It
the
is.
ups and downs of it. We were just talking about like it's not a straight line. It's a
No.
zigzaggy kind of up and down. And sometimes you go back, you retrace all the way back down. You're like, what the heck am I doing down here? We were doing so well a second ago.
Exactly.
Yeah, so it's it's funny in the aspect of you can look at it as this sucks, I don't want to do this anymore, or you can just look at it as like this is where we're at right now. This is part of the
Right.
process. And you can't always, but I mean most of the time you can look back 6 months and go, oh yeah, We're better
Yeah,
than
and
you
just
were.
see
We're
like
farther
where
along
did I
than you
come
were.
from 6 months ago? Because six
Yeah.
months ago I hadn't done a gator deal.
Right.
So now I can say, yes, I've done that.
Yeah.
Um, and 6 months ago I wasn't TCing, and now I've learned so much from that and
Yeah.
done several different files. And so it is that you get to reflect and go, oh shit, I did actually. I don't know if I can swear. Sorry.
No, you're
Um,
good
uh,
here.
I actually did grow. It may didn't feel like I did leaps and bounds. I'm not, making $1 million a month yet, and that's yet.
Yeah.
But it is that's what I'm working towards, and it's working. Like there's momentum. It's moving,
Yeah.
and so that's the important part is that movement, that momentum.
Yep. It reminds me of a song, kind of what you just said is like you don't see yourself growing, and it's a kid's song. Raffi is the artist. I grew up with him when I was a kid. He was like in the early 80s. We play it to our kids. Like Harland, our oldest, literally requests it every couple hours. Hey, can we play Raffi? And it's called "I Wonder If I'm Growing." And it's this kid is not seeing himself growing, but one day he's able to reach up and touch the water in the faucet, and he goes, I am growing. Like I can see it now that there has been progress made. So yeah, we don't always see the growth happening until we can look back and go, oh man, I was recording my calls this whole time. A year ago, I didn't even know. I was like, oh, somebody answered, click, you know? Yeah, yeah. Now I'm able to go through a process with them, ask, meaningful questions, curious questions, and find out information that other people aren't able to get out. So yeah, there's growth. We're always growing. Well,
Exactly.
as long as we keep pushing forward. I don't want to take up any more time, Victoria, but I'm going to ask you one more thing. Any parting thoughts, tips, tricks for somebody getting started in TC Gator, their entrepreneurial journey, anything like that?
So as far as tips and tricks, open your mouth. That is going to be the biggest benefit to you. Raising your hand, opening your mouth, being present, talking to people. I know it sucks. I'm actually very much an introvert. Hiding behind a camera is actually I'm comfortable there, but at meetups it's harder for me to do that. But being willing to speak up, to say hello, to talk to people on social media, but talking to people in real person, that it makes a big difference. But just being willing to do that, sometimes that's all you need to do is just be willing. Uh, is all you need to do, and then you can build on that, and you can work on that.
Yeah.
So that's what my biggest advice is that being willing, talk to people, ask questions. Maybe it's just to the person right next to you, hey, what do you do, what is your name? Or maybe it's messaging somebody on Facebook Messenger, maybe it's on Instagram, or what have you, but reaching out and making connections as well.
Yeah. It's funny when you said open your mouth, my immediate thought was like, oh, usually you hear shut your mouth and listen. But then you explain and it goes, yep, you got to take the first step to initiate. Not always. You have to take the first step to initiate the conversation, though, and then you can shut up and
And
listen.
then you can shut
Yeah.
up and listen.
Yeah. Well, it was a pleasure, Victoria. I knew there was going to be smiles. I knew there was going to be a lot of nuggets that you had to drop in here. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Later.
Later. Thank you so much, Nathaniel.